What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from dopetechdaily.com, and today I'm bringing you guys my first 10 things to do with the Galaxy S8 once you take it out of the box. Got a keep document here. Some of these are going to get saved for a separate video on customization, but these are going to be the essential things that I'm going to change. I'm actually going to go through and show you them as I do them myself. I already set up the fingerprint scanner, but let's get right into it. So the first thing to do is to set up the fingerprint scanner and or the face lock and the iris scanning features. Now the fingerprint scanner on the phone's in a weird position right here back next to the camera. Mentioned that in my unboxing, which I'll link below if you guys want to check it out. And I found that it's not really that great to use. So if you don't want to use the fingerprint scanner, of course there are other options that you can use. You go into lock screen and security, you'll have to choose a pin or a swipe pattern. Then you can put in your fingerprints here, and obviously, as I've said many times, you can set up multiple fingerprints to try to get increased accuracy. So try to set up the same fingerprint multiple times to increase the accuracy of the scanner. Now you can see that I've already set up a couple of fingerprints here to actually get into the phone because I've been testing that out. You can also set up the face and the iris scanner here. Of course, that's almost impossible for me to do behind the camera because you actually need to be looking at the camera on the S8 when I'm behind the camera here filming. But you can turn on the facial recognition and the iris scanning features here as well. One thing to note about the facial recognition features and iris scanning is that they cannot be turned on at the same time. They use two different parts of the hardware. Obviously, you're using the iris scanner and then also using the camera, the front-facing camera for the facial recognition. Facial recognition also is not secure enough to use with Samsung Pay. So if you want to use Samsung Pay, you're going to have to choose those fingerprint options or the iris scanning options for the biometrics here. And of course, you can still go with a traditional screen lock like a swipe pin or pattern, whatever it is that you want to do. That is a possibility as well. But if you want to get into your phone a little bit easier, I highly recommend using the fingerprint unlock or the iris scanner or the facial recognition. The next thing, once you set up your secure screen lock, which is the first thing you'll want to do, is you'll want to go into display settings, and there's a number of things in the display settings that you'll want to alter. So if we go back to the settings menu here, right there is display. The first thing you're going to want to look at is the blue light filter. You might want to turn on a schedule for your blue light filter. This takes a little while to set up, but basically this will allow you to get that nice blue light filter at night when you're reading in the bed. That way you don't strain your eyes too much. You can set this to a custom schedule, which will allow you to do it certain times, start and end, maybe when you go to bed and when you wake up. The next thing is you'll want to choose the screen mode. I highly recommend leaving this on adaptive display. This gives you the optimized color range for the Galaxy S8. You can also play around though with the color balance here, and you can choose from AMOLED Cinema, AMOLED Photo, and then the basic mode as well. You've also got a very important option here with the screen resolution. It comes to 1080p by default because you've got this extra tall aspect ratio on the Galaxy S8 Plus. If you want to get the full resolution, the WQHD Plus right there, you can slide that over and change your screen resolution. You can also change it down to 720p. Not sure why you'd want to do that other than perhaps saving battery life, but that option is available to you. You can also change the screen zoom, which basically is going to change how much content you see there on the screen, then also the font size there from tiny up to huge. And you can also change your font style. You know, some people like Choco Cookie. I don't know, not a big fan. I just stick with the default, but you can change the font style as well and download additional fonts if you want. The next thing is the home screen. You can change the home screen layout. You can change the grid. You also can change the apps button. So if you want to have an apps button there, it doesn't come by default because the new Samsung launcher has a swipe up, swipe down to get to the apps. And that's like the Pixel launcher, except on the Pixel launcher, you don't have the option of swiping down. So you definitely want to look into any of these settings you want to change. Perhaps you want to add that old school app button. You want a larger grid, or maybe you want to have the home and app screen and change that back to home screen only like this. So you don't have to have the traditional setup. All your apps will be on the home screen. If you go to home screen only, that'll be more like an iPhone setup. So if you're coming from an iPhone, maybe that's something you would be interested in doing. The next thing is full screen apps. The full screen apps, this chooses which of the apps actually display in the full screen aspect ratio. Take advantage of that super tall display for reading more content. You can go through and select these. Most of the apps that have text in them, where you're going to be reading a lot of things, are going to be auto-selected. And some of them, obviously, you can see are grayed out that don't take full advantage of the screen real estate. But this is something to look at just in case there's an app that you want to not run in the full aspect ratio. I'll talk more about why you might want to do that in a future video, but that option is there to you to alter at any time. There's a lot of other options here, like the edge screen, but the other one I really want to focus on is the navigation bar. This is a couple of more of my points. The navigation bar, the color can be changed. I personally like to change it to black. You can also do like a, any color you want on the color wheel. You can pick it to be blue if you want, any shade of the color wheel. You can unlock with the home button, which is nice. You can hard press the home button so you can turn that feature on. You can also change the button layout, and this is a huge deal for hardcore Android fans. Forever, Samsung's had the back button on the right side, recent apps on the left, and then the home button here, whereas Android has that on the other arrangement. So if you're using a Pixel, you're coming from a Pixel device, you might want to change that around. You can also alter the home button sensitivity, which I highly recommend you do. So you go through and change this to be more or less sensitive depending on your personal preferences of what it is that you like. So you can play around with the home button sensitivity, see what works for you. If you like the tactile feedback or not, you can turn that up or down here within the display settings. All right, so there's a lot of other options in here, but those are the main tips I have for the display and for the home button. We probably checked off quite a few things in my Keep Document at once. The display settings, navigation key orientation, which I just showed you guys, and the sensitivity for the home button all in one there. The next thing is setting up the always on display. The always on display is actually located within the lock screen and security settings. You see here, if you tap on the always on display, you can choose your clock style. You can also put a photo there, calendar, etc. You can also choose what to show on the always on display, home button and clock or information, or just the home button only. It's entirely up to you. The always on display is a very convenient way of getting your clock, any other information and notifications as they come in. I highly recommend setting it up and tailoring it to your preferences. Maybe try a few of these and see what works best for you. The next thing is Bixby Home. Now you guys know the Galaxy S8 Plus comes with the Bixby button on the side. The Bixby voice assistant's actually not ready completely here at launch, but you do have Bixby Home, which you can actually access either by using the button. You guys can see how hard the fingerprint scanner is to use with your right hand. You can actually use it by pressing the Bixby button, and you'll need to set it up. So if you press start there, it'll take you into the setup process for Bixby Home. You can agree to all here. Obviously, it's going to have to access your data because it compiles all of your information, calendar, etc., all of your feeds. You can go through here and see what it is that you want in the feed, right? You've got your Facebook, Samsung themes, news, sports. All this stuff can be customized quite a bit by going up into the settings. Check out what kind of Hello Bixby cards you want there, whether or not you want to have Hello Bixby on the lock screen. You can check out some of the supported apps that you can use and download those apps here. So obviously Bixby is not something that I'm necessarily going to use long term, but it is something I want to give a try, and I highly recommend you set it up, at least play with it. For now, Samsung has disabled the ability to go in and remap the Bixby button, which we all want. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and set it up. That way, when I accidentally press this button instead of the power button, I actually see some information and see how I like the Bixby Home feed. So try it, set it up, see if you like it. Why not? It's a new feature of the phone. Might as well see how it is. Game launcher settings. This is something I mentioned last year with the Galaxy S7 Edge. This was new with the Galaxy S7 Edge. So if you go into advanced features and you go right here to games, you can turn the game launcher on. So if you play a lot of games, you'll want to set up the game launcher. It's very nice. It'll automatically arrange all your games in one place, and it'll give you additional settings and features that you can use when you set up your games. There's a lot of options there. You can turn off notifications while you're in a game, go full screen mode, you can record your games, etc. It's a really, really nice option to have. So if you play a lot of games, I highly recommend turning that on and setting up the game launcher feature as you start downloading your games. The last thing here on my top 10 things is disable carrier bloat. So the carrier bloat on the T-Mobile version isn't really that bad, but there are still some apps, for instance, like, oh, and there's the game launcher icon, just to show you guys what it looks like. If you go in there and agree, then you can enable the game launcher, and it's going to ask you to update. And then once you do the update, you'll be able to go through and actually set up the game launcher settings. So while we're waiting for that to update, let me just walk through the last thing here, which is disabling the carrier bloat. There's not that much on the Samsung phones for T-Mobile, but for instance, Lookout is a security app that I don't particularly like, and you can disable this app. So you can see there's the option right there to disable it. So you can go ahead and just click disable, and it'll replace that with the factory version. So you can't actually delete some of the bloat that's on all the carrier versions, but on most of them you have the option to at least disable things. Now this is all Samsung first-party apps, so you can't disable that. But the carrier bloat for the majority, you can. Now things like T-Mobile, right, their name ID, since it's T-Mobile's own apps, you won't be able to disable those. But you can just leave them in their own folder and for the most part, they stay out of the way. But something like Lookout, I like to disable. The Verizon variant probably has a lot more bloat, and I'll look at that on Friday when I get my Orchid Gray variant from Verizon. So let's go ahead and take a look at the game launcher. I think it updated. So if you look here, you can see you can add apps, find more games. You can turn on no alerts during games, and you can also mute games as well. You can also go normal performance. You can tune the performance during your gaming. That way you have a high performance mode. That way it's going to drain power more, but you can crank up screen resolution and all those sorts of things. So a lot of nice options here, and all the settings can be tuned within here if you want to get app notifications, like I said. All right, so those are my top 10 tips for setting up your Galaxy S8 Plus right out of the box. I will have another video talking about customizing the Galaxy S8 Plus, which are some additional options you could do if you want to improve your experience, which are things that I will do as well. So if you guys want to check that out, that video will be coming up very soon. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see future videos like this. You can find me at dopetechdaily.com, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter at the links in the description. I appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.